Welcome back to another episode of Man vs. Meeple, the show where we talk about everything board game related. I am your host, Jeremy Salinas, aka Drakkenstrike, and we have a whole slew of things coming your way as we prepare for the convention season starting in just about a month for Gen Con 2016. And speaking of, we have a brand new Kickstarter game by Action Phase Games called Dreamwell, which will see its wide release at the convention. But before we get there, sitting to my right, the self-proclaimed new guy, Mr. David Waybright. Say hello, David.
I am the new guy. Hello, everyone.
Which is an awful name. We need to get somebody in the comments section to make a comment about that.
Agreed.
Give him something cool to call himself, because that just doesn't work, right?
And please don't, be kind. Be kind with the nicknames, and then maybe we'll pick one up for me.
So, excited for Gen Con?
Oh, a mix of emotions. Excited, and my brain hurts because we've been spending the last few days independently
racking our brains,
researching what feels like thousands and thousands of games for Gen Con. Right. So I'm looking forward to it. But
we should have a list.
A million games going through my head.
We should have a list up very soon for you guys on what we are most anticipated to play. Some of these games we've played, so we're trying to fiddle around and figure out what. Before we get to Dreamwell, some exciting announcements from Man vs. Meeple. We have rebranded our Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube channels. Make comments, let us know what you think, like us, comment below.
Love us, do everything you can to help support us. We appreciate it. When you comment, good, bad, we'll take it into consideration. We're really just trying to help to allow you to help us lead where the show goes.
Yeah, and we'll make every effort to respond back to you guys in a quick manner to every single post that we see, good or bad. So keep those suggestions rolling. We also have a Patreon website that should be launching in the next couple of days. It's exciting because it's going to allow us to interact in new ways with our viewers. It's also going to present some very cool swag for you guys that's not offered anywhere else. So take a look at that. We'll announce it the day that it goes up on Twitter, Facebook, and of course here on YouTube. And the most exciting thing of all is that starting last week with Royals and moving forward for ever, we're going to be giving away a free game with every single review that we do. Now, we're trying to get publisher buy-in, and if not, we're going to be funding it ourselves. So, make a comment below on Dreamwell. Right?
Exactly.
And you could win a free copy of this deluxe edition. I'll present the end date for you guys on the YouTube channel so you'll know. Whatever you guys want to comment for.
Just make a comment and you'll be entered into a random drawing for a copy of the game.
Yeah, so let's get to Dreamwell, guys. It is a 2 to 4 player abstract game that's played over a 4x4 completely modular board.
There's 16 tiles. If you take a look here, they're covered with the sort of trippiness of this game.
This is some very funky artwork. Now, I know a lot of people have mentioned this before, but it's artwork by Tara McPherson. I don't know her, but supposedly she's a very popular artist.
Yeah.
And this stuff is weird.
It is weird, but in a beautiful way. I actually like this art. If you've seen the cartoon Adventure Time, this artwork should be right up your alley.
That's very true. It looks a lot like that.
It's got that playful yet kind of disturbingly weird look to it.
Disturbingly weird is a good, that's a good term.
But you have 16 tiles and you build the board randomly. So you're just laying these things out. Any rotation, upside down, sideways, you just can't lay them flipped over. As you'll notice here, the other side has a black border around the pictures. You want to use the white bordered side.
Yeah, so the black border side is for the advanced game. We're not going to talk a whole lot about that today.
A little bit later, but
a little bit later.
Enough.
Now, the tiles themselves, there's 3 components to a tile. The first thing is the creature on the tile. The second one is the background that he's sitting on. And then the third thing are portals, which are these little blue
doorways.
Gates or doorways, mystical doorways, that allow you to travel faster between tiles.
Right.
So the whole object of the game here is to find your friends in this lost Dreamwell world, right?
Right. The cards that you'll see here at the bottom are the friend cards.
Yes.
You'll create a display of 4 of those, and those are the cards you're going to be playing throughout the game to score points.
Right.
And to break down one of those cards, you'll see it correlates with the board. There are 2 creatures on every friend's card and a background.
Right.
Now, in order to fulfill this card, you're going to take the pawns here And you want to tell them what the name is? Or should I?
It's Mr. Wiggles.
Mr. Wiggles.
Right.
It's Mr. Wiggles, everyone.
I don't know what that means, but it's Mr. Wiggles, right?
And it's beautiful. But you take Mr. Wiggles, and everyone has 2 Mr. Wiggle pawns.
Right.
And basically you're going to be positioning with various actions on the board so you can fulfill these 3 things.
Yeah, so for instance, to fulfill this card, you have to have one of your Mr. Wiggles on a whale spot with a water background, or the black Kingdom Hearts looking guy on a water spot. Now, the only available one is the whale on the water, and the other one can be on any of these black little blobs. When that happens, one of your actions is to actually play a card. We'll get into that in a moment, but that's what you're typically trying to do.
That's what you're doing to fulfill these cards, and eventually someone's going to fulfill 7 of these cards, which triggers the end of the game.
Okay, so you start off the board with both of your Mr. Wiggles, and as one of the actions of a turn, you can move onto the board. When you move onto the board, you can move on to any of the outlying tiles that are available.
On your turn, you get 3 actions.
Right.
The first of which, and probably the main action throughout the game, is movement. So one action is to move 1 tile. And if you're off the board, one action is to move on to a tile around the edge. Now, once you're on the board, here's where movement gets a little interesting. Say you move here onto this tile, and you want to take another action to move to this tile. Well, if you see here, I'm moving through portals that match up with one another. When you do that, that's one action, but it's also earned you an immediate bonus movement action with this pawn.
So moving through portals is basically a quicker way to get around the board, right?
Right. You need to move through at least a portal on your tile to legally move.
Right.
But if it's matching up with another portal, it kind of gives you a little boost, if you will.
Now, a second action that you can take on your turn is rotating a tile, which comes into play if you want to move a long distance and not move off the board. Now, one of the options is moving off the board and then moving on somewhere else, just like you would at the start of the game.
Which takes 2 actions, by the way.
Right. So if you don't want to do that, and say you're in the very center, one of the 4 center tiles, and you need to move somewhere on the outlying areas, you can always rotate one of the tiles. When you rotate a tile, it can be rotated in any possible orientation.
Yeah, 90 degrees,
wish.
180, 270. You just pick it up, rotate it, and put it back down.
Now, the only caveat to that is that you can't rotate a tile if another player and you are not on it. So, for instance, you have to be on the tile you rotate, or nobody has to be on the tile.
Yeah, you can't. There's not a lot of interaction in this game, and one of the things they have in there to ensure that is you can't just pick up someone on their tile and mess with them.
So the third action is drawing a card, and that's simply from one of the 4 face-up cards. When you do that, you take the friend, you put him in your hand, and that card is available for you to use. There's no hand limit at all. You can have as many cards as you so wish. When that happens, you refill the tableau with another brand new card.
Right.
A fourth action is to get rid of the whole... No, get rid of the whole
sorry,
table.
yes. Before playing the card, if you don't like what you see in the display, you can pick them all up, put them in the discard pile, and fill the display with 4 new cards.
That allows you guys basically the option of trying to fulfill future rounds with friends that you don't see there, or actions that you don't see.
Yeah, there's some setting up, some synergies with the cards you have and the cards in the display so that you can more efficiently fulfill the cards. Also, some of the scoring is going to be based on set collection. So you might want to be refreshing the display to get more of those cards that you need.
Right, exactly. And the final one is playing a card.
Yes.
As we mentioned, you have to be on the location with your Mr. Wiggles pawns that match the friend card that you're trying to play.
Yes, once you've fulfilled the card, you can play it, but playing it is an action.
Yeah.
So you only have 3 actions, and it's movement, rotating a card, drawing a card, refreshing the whole display, or playing a card. And that's really the basic structure of playing the game. Now, let's talk a little bit about when you play a card. What can we look at on the card there?
So when you play the card or fulfill the card, you lay it out straight out in front of you, and it gives you a certain amount of victory points. You also have on the right-hand side, the right bottom corner, a special ability that's either a one-time immediate use or something that's prolonged until another card covers it up. So what does that mean exactly? The second time you fulfill a friend, and in future turns, you cover that special ability with the new card that you just fulfilled, giving you that special ability instead. So essentially, you're only allowed one special ability at a time. Now, the set collection portion of the game also comes from these cards that you play. You'll notice the first card I played is just a straight-up 3 victory points.
Right.
The second card I played requires you to have this little...
two little pink-haired women with seahorses through her torso.
Yeah,
so yeah, again, It's pretty trippy.
Yeah, this is odd stuff. But you get
I love it though.
Yeah, you get 2 victory points every time you have one of those cards, and that's these little friends areas that you see here. For instance, this lady is just a blue lady with a white fox or something.
And again, all of these characters and creatures have names, but it would have taken weeks for us to commit all of those to memory.
I don't remember that at all. So the first player to get 7 of these cards laid out in front of them will trigger the end of the game.
Right. You trigger the end of the game, you finish your turn, and then it just moves along to the start player.
Right.
So you just finish the current round, and that's the game end.
Person with the most points wins. Pretty basic. So let's talk first about our cons.
Yeah, let's talk about cons. I mean, there are some cons. I think we should get those out of the way. For me, it's 2 things. One, and this is kind of 2 sides of the same point. I love the art on one hand, but on the other hand, the colors, when you have the board built, the colors can make the board a little jarring to the eye.
It's like a pastel brush has been pasted over the entire area,
there's a lot of pinks and light blues and a lot of combinations of those colors on all the tiles. And then on top of it, when you get all these Mr. Wiggles pawns out on the board, sometimes 2 or 3 on the same tile, it obscures a lot of the board. You're constantly picking up to see what creature you're on, tilting the Mr. Wiggles so you can see which one's yours. Every game I've played of this,
it's a little jarring.
There's been moments where people started to move the wrong guy and things like that. Now, they have put some identifiers on the bottoms of the Mr. Wiggles, but that kind of brings me to my next con, which are these pawns. I love the art. I love Mr. Wiggles. I'd love a shirt with Mr. Wiggles on it. I'd like a pawn, though, with more of a wooden meeple feel to it, and less of a... I've never been a big fan. In fact, it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, the thin cardboard. And this is pretty good cardboard, but...
It just speaks of like 1980s game design, and it's really weird because you look at games like Rebellion, and Rebellion has cardboard stands in it, but those cardboard stands have a purpose. They have numbers on them. They play into the game. These are just pawns. That's all they are, right?
Yeah, I think they really could have been something a little bit...
Round tokens with a sticker. I mean, that
honestly,
solves the whole...
That would have helped. I mean, there's a practical purpose to my point, too, is that it would help not obscure the board. It would help you more easily identify your pawns and the other players' pawns.
And the color of the pawn, right?
It would also, I think, just make the game a little nicer. It's already a beautiful game and a nice game. I just think that would have pushed it a little bit more over the top.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Now, to me, this is a pretty standard set fare of collection. I mean, there's not a whole lot going on that's new in this game. You may be feeling different to that.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't say it breaks new ground. I would, in terms of how you score points. But I think, I mean, at least for me, I've never played a game that had this combination of movement and tile rotation, and then, like we said in the advanced game, there's even tile flipping, which makes it a little bit more of a meaty game.
Yeah.
So there is some uniqueness there.
But all of that can kind of contribute to a kind of an AP or analysis paralysis type of game.
It absolutely can.
And the more you play this game, the easier it becomes, but it's still with the blocking of the tiles and all of the different things you can do with all these different cards, and then trying to find them on the board, and then trying to figure out if you need to rotate a tile and how to fulfill that and how to fulfill future ones. But it's a thinky game. And good or bad, just go into it knowing that there can be some AP and taking 2 or 3 minutes for a player to try to decide on how they want to approach. Even when it's hard to plan before your turn too, right? Because tiles can be rotated and things can just be thrown out of whack by the basic movement of the tiles.
Right, you need
changing.
to adjust sometimes quickly. Yeah. I've played a variety of games with a variety of people now, and I think the best way to approach this is to approach it as a playful, filler-esque sort of game.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not something. I mean, the problem is it can be thinky, so those of us who do like to think about our games can kind of slowly drift over into overanalyzing it. But if you just kind of maintain that attitude of like, let's just play this game, have some fun with it, it's a great little game.
Yeah, I'll make no concessions here. The artwork is good, but it's not my style. It's a little too My Little Pony.
I love it.
Yeah, you love it, and that's fine. I would gravitate more towards a game like The Little Prince.
That's a good, good comparison.
It's kind of it's got that whimsical feel to it. It's kind of a tile placement game with some basic set collection and trying to fulfill planet structures, and it gives me the same feel as this, but it doesn't have this weird, funky artwork that to me just doesn't appeal.
Yeah, and like I said, I like the art. With that said, I would say this game, we could shift over into our pros now, I think.
Yeah.
The artwork appeals to me, but it's a filler style game, and I think it fits a perfect opportunity for certain game nights. I don't see playing this alongside Rebellion.
No. No.
But if I'm having a game night with Seasons, it has a little bit of that same sort of vibe where it's sort of whimsical and a little trippy.
Yeah.
You know, it's a different style of art for sure, but they're both kind of have a little similar vibe to me, and it would be a nice appetizer to that entree.
Yeah, the great thing too is that the game plays extremely quickly, 30 minutes in and out. It's got a very easy setup. It's very easy to teach.
Small footprint.
Yeah, very small footprint. I know the box says 13 and up, but this can really be played and probably should be played by families, probably ages 10 and up. Would you think? It's pretty easy to understand
I think it could
and learn.
be 10 and up. I mean, my family probably skews a little high with the kids, but 10 and up for sure.
Maybe not the advanced game, but that's the other great thing about the game is that it can be thinky. And when you get into the advanced game and you start flipping the tiles and adding these new induction of these black cards that add more set collection to the game and more abilities to the game becomes more of a meatier gamer's game, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Than what it typically is just out of the box.
Yeah, in fact, in addition to the advanced rules, there's even sort of a third tier where you can add an element that allows a lot of interactivity where you're moving a piece around the board to specifically shut down paths for other people. So it can become a very different game. So in that way, it is kind of cool that it can be a nice light game.
Yeah.
And it can be a pretty heavy game if you want it to be.
Right, exactly. And the mechanics of the game are spotless. There's nothing in the game that's jarring like, this doesn't make sense.
It's a well-designed game.
Yeah, it is a well-designed game. So that is Dreamwell. And of course, please, guys, comment below. Get your chance to be entered into a raffle to win the game. Make comments on Twitter, make comments on Facebook. Let us know what you think, as always. That is Dreamwell. I'm Jeremy Salinas.
I'm David Waybright.
And we'll see you guys again. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.